The Silver Samurai is a bit more of a complex figure. I wouldn't necessarily call him an outright superhero, so let's just get that out of the way. But he has genuinely acted as a superhero on multiple occasions. When Wolverine was training in order to use the Muramasa blade, he went to the Silver Samurai for that training. While the samurai had trained Logan at a disadvantage, meaning he gave Logan only half of a wooden sword while he had two, after about 5 days, Logan had gained enough skill to not only defeat Silver Samurai, but he even had 6 different ways that he could have done it, and chose the least painful of the 6 different ways Samurai had left himself open to, as to not hurt the man's pride too much. He held back on Silver Samurai and tried not to humble him too much, so that's why at this point we'll stay up here near the top of the list. But coming in next, Wolverine and Cyclops are not really the greatest of friends, even if they are now technically part of a throuple. I'm not getting into that. But while there are moments where Wolverine has physically humbled the leader of the X-Men, this next spot was more of a fun little jab at Cyclops' sense of style. When the two of them have to fight all of the Sentinels in Wolverine and the X-Men number 40, there's some tension as to whether Logan is just gonna bail out and let Cyclops handle the robots all by his lonesome. Now, he doesn't do that, and the two heroes destroy every single Sentinel around. After they're limping out of the place, Wolverine mentions how they look like hell, and Cyclops fires back saying, "You always look like hell," which is when Wolverine says the man who wears sunglasses indoors. It's honestly a pretty wholesome, kinda cute, funny moment, but even then, Wolverine is still dissing Cyclops just a little bit. This next humbling comes to us in Wolverine and the X-Men number 12, written by Jason Aaron. Starring Rachel Gray, she's charged with attempting to hunt down Wolverine and Hope Summers after the duo escaped at the end of the previous issue. She tracks Wolverine and the other Avengers on the run, including Giant Man, Spider-Woman, Thor, War Machine, Captain America, Quicksilver, and Beast. Now, a battle eventually ensues as Rachel reveals her crew: Kid Gladiator, Iceman, Angel, and Namor. Now, Kid Gladiator is the one here who gets humbled, and it was kind of a long time coming as the kid was a little too cocky for his own good. After giving Wolverine a pretty ruthless beatdown, admittedly, and, quote, commanding Wolverine to pop his claws, Wolverine pops up, and in one move he explains how he's studied to be able to bring down anything that lives, including superpowered Strontians like Kid Gladiator, using a single pressure point to subdue the kid before telling him he should have stayed in school, kid. James Howlett and Eddie Brock have a lot in common. Both have bonded with the Clintar symbiote known as Venom. Both are incredibly popular anti-heroes known for brutal tactics when dispatching evil. Wolverine and Venom have also crossed paths and have fought on more than one occasion. The Claws and Webs story, Venom Tooth and Claw, and Wolverine Exit Wounds number 1. However, I'm going to talk about 2018's Venom Annual number 1. Venom and Wolverine get into a bar fight pretty early on in Venom's career as a villain. Now, this fight takes place after Claw and Web, since Wolverine does remember fighting Venom before. Venom barges into the bar looking for Spider-Man, but Wolverine gives him a pretty hard time. The two fight, with Venom keeping Wolverine at bay and Wolverine continuously just charging at him over and over. Venom technically does deal more physical damage to Wolverine here, but Logan manages to break Venom down by shrugging off everything he did to him and always coming back, dismissing Venom's grudge against Spider-Man as childish and absurd, which leaves Venom humiliated as he just wanders off. Now, in what is a pretty inconsequential moment coming to us in New Avengers number 15 from 2010, the Avengers are outside of Avengers Mansion doing a little sparring session, and the two we start off with are Iron Fist and, of course, Wolverine. The other Avengers watch on as these two engage in a battle of fisticuffs, not using their powers. They seem to be pretty well matched though, both blocking, dodging, and landing attacks on each other. Now, Iron Fist is obviously a martial arts based hero, and it would be easy to think that he has the upper hand in this conflict. But Wolverine is arguably one of the best hand-to-hand fighters in Marvel Comics. After Wolverine gets Iron Fist in a hold, Rand moves out of it, and before he can make his next move, Wolverine socks him with a punch that has him hitting the ground. Now, Wolverine says that he was fighting at about a 6 just then, while Iron Fist says that he was at a 3, but I don't know, man. That's pretty embarrassing. Then, Squirrel Girl just outmatches Wolverine with no problem, so things are a little wonky here anyways. Next up, the Thing is one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe, able to stand toe-to-toe with the Hulk in battle. He and Wolverine have had their scrapes, and most of the time Logan's been on the losing side of things. But in one altercation taking place in Fantastic Four 1961 issue 374, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, Professor Hulk, and Spider-Man, who had previously taken the place of the Fantastic Four, were hunting for Johnny Storm, who had accidentally just destroyed part of Empire State University. This led to an altercation between the four heroes and the actual Fantastic Four. When Wolverine went to attack Susan Storm, Ben Grimm grabbed the Canadian and slammed him into the ground, calling him an arrogant little creep. But Wolverine, in his rage, used all his might and slashed Ben across the face, disfiguring the Thing in a way that actually severely affected the character. The character even went on to wear a face mask for a chunk of time to hide his wounds. Wolverine is a Canadian, and as such, he is pretty closely tied to the Canadian superhero team Alpha Flight. In Uncanny X-Men 1963 number 355, Alpha Flight had been misled to attack Wolverine by Department H, and even though this is just solo Wolverine with no adamantium, he manages to make them look like a bunch of chumps. Starting off the fight, he knocks down Guardian and is seemingly taking on the entire team at once, with Puck jumping on his back and catching some swift elbows before being thrown off. He then faces Flex, who he simply just punches the lights out of, and when the fight finally begins to settle into some more peaceful talks, Wolverine gets sucker punched by Sasquatch, a gamma-powered Goliath, I'll remind you, who Wolverine then goes charging into, starting a fist fight, which is promptly interrupted by the arrival of the X-Men. Now, while Wolverine in the comics is very much a badass, he can sometimes find himself being a little silly and being outsmarted or outmoved by others from time to time. But I gotta say, his live-action counterpart, played iconically by Hugh Jackman, is a pretty consistent badass who puts almost everyone in their place. Now, this is a very small moment, but my god is it iconic. So this is the first X-Men movie. Wolverine is just suited up for the very first time and is joining the X-Men on a mission to rescue Rogue from the Statue of Liberty. It's the lead up to the movie's climax. The team enters into the statue, but because his entire skeleton is covered in adamantium, Wolverine sets off the metal detectors, which he then destroys with a quick slash. Now, Cyclops, being all mature and wannabe father figure like, gives Wolverine a stern old look of disapproval, to which Wolverine responds by retracting all but his middle claw. He gave Cyclops the Wolverine middle finger. Kids everywhere lost their damn minds. Sure, it's not one of the most clever moves, but god, I loved it. Wolverine was introduced in Incredible Hulk Volume 1, number 180 and 181 as an antagonist deployed by Canada's Department H to fight the Incredible Hulk, and thus a rivalry was born. One of the best fights the two have had comes from Savage Wolverine number 5, featuring Wolverine teaming up with Amadeus Cho and Shauna the She-Devil to prevent the destruction of a machine in the Savage Land. However, the monster this machine is meant to hold back is a pretty dastardly devil, and has been luring people to destroy the machine for it. After failing to do this to Wolverine, the monster instead turns its sights on the Hulk. The Hulk comes to the Savage Land and begins going wild, destroying everything in his path on his way to the machine. Now naturally, Wolverine alongside his companions stands in the Hulk's way, leading to a fight. But in a surprise move, not really seeing another option, Wolverine leaps onto the Hulk at the last second and runs his claws straight into his skull, lobotomizing him. This is still the Hulk we're talking about here, so he does regenerate pretty quickly, but this is an incredible feat for even Wolverine. And lastly, I'm coming back with another live-action Wolverine moment because 1, I couldn't help myself, and 2, it's absolutely iconic. Now there are so many moments from the many movies to choose from, but I think one of my absolute favorites comes from X-Men First Class, when Wolverine shows up for less than 30 seconds. Every PG-13 movie gets one F-bomb, and this movie used it perfectly. During a recruitment montage during the 1960s, Professor X and Magneto are traveling around recruiting various mutants to their team when they find one James Howlett enjoying a cigar in a bar. They walk up, and just as they get their names out, James here barely acknowledges them as he says, "Go F yourself," and continues on with his cigar. It's beautiful. So with that though, my name is Adam Andrews. As always, I will catch you guys on the flippy flop. Stay safe, keep positive, and peace out, you nerds. Snick snicked.